first dream? Do you remember that story?
Eisenhower went into a room full of computers, and he puts a question to these machines: is there a God? And they all start up, and there's all those lights flashing and wheels turning,
the apocalypse
things
of
like
Adam,
that. And after
trimorphic
about 10
protanoia,
minutes of that
which
kind
is
of
just
thing,
a lovely
a voice
Greek
comes forth, and the voice
phrase
says,
that means the three forms
now
of the
there
first
is.
thought. Hypostasis of the archons, or the
bought this
reality of the rulers
wonderful
of
machine,
nature of the
IBM
rulers.
machine.
Thought of
It's
Noria,
there.
Gospel of the
And,
Egyptians, or the
I'm
Holy
rather
Book
an
of the Great
authority on
Invisible
God,
Spirit.
so I identified
Melchizedek,
God.
three
It seems to
steles
be
of
an Old
Seth,
Testament God with a lot
Zostrianos,
of rules, no
Allogenes,
mercy.
Allogenes, the stranger, Marcines, and then in the Bruce Codex there's an untitled text along with the Apocryphon of John is also in the Bruce Codex. And then in Chakos there's the Gospel of Judas and the Book of Allogenes, which is some newly translated stuff, but definitely Sethians.
I mean, taking
anything you want to add, Bishop, before we move on to the Apocrypha?
beginning of the machine. It's turning out of nature into your service. But then there comes a time when it begins to dictate to you.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
But you can't go wrong.
The fire that danced at the end of that match is a gift from the Titan Prometheus. A gift that he stole from the gods, who were terrified of what we might do with it were it to fall into our hairy little paws.
Can we create as Jason contends? And I've heard Gordon talk about this as it belongs to the outer church of grace. How you play is what you win.
It's an honor to die at your side. It's an honor to have lived at yours.
The new American gods that want us on lockdown and embedded in those altars of data mining, soul-numbing, empathy-killing technology.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
I spend all this for you.
All because he gave us fire. We are the gods now. We wield incredible power. The power to transform, to destroy, and to create. The question, of course, before us is what the hell are we supposed to do with this power?
Machine men with machine minds and machine hearts.
I spend all this time outside to reconnect with older gods and call out to the trapped divinity in every plant and animal and rock. Find that lost song of Orpheus. I got weirder, stranger, and found new, kinder dimensions of myself. I changed, and I hope you execute your own small Prometheus rebellion. Locate that fire that works for you.
All because he gave us fire.
And the Holocene altogether. And allegedly goes back to the time of Atlantis.
We wield incredible power.
Ancient Egyptian religion.
Power to transform, to destroy, and to create.
Storm god, commonly associated.
The question, of course, before us is what the hell are we supposed to do with this power?
During the period attributed to
and it is strange my wife complains that she sees hummingbirds and squirrels approach me solely outdoors since I've become basically part of the outdoor world. Me, the surly Sethian duelist. But that's what we do in the age of Hermes. We trick the gods, we trick everyone around us, and we trick our own egos. We alchemically transform by being weird and soaring so high nobody understands us. As Ursula Le Guin also wrote, you cannot buy the revolution. You cannot make the revolution. You can only be the revolution. It's in your spirit, or it is nowhere.
Every revolution begins with one small act. of course.
Heck and heckety. In the Truman Show, Truman couldn't defeat Kristoff by fighting the Empire, but only won once he started playing tricks on his creator.
The whole world revolves around me.
It's all that I've said, or the neon god, the machine god, swallows us.
I'd like to briefly address a point he made about the Gnostic baptism of light.
The goal was never to have
I
robots
offer this
take our jobs,
explanation
but
in an effort to
turn
make
us
this
into
knowledge public,
robots.
not to convince
Devour our
anyone of
innocence,
anything.
imagination,
And I'm aware
and
that
anything
most will
that connects us
disagree
to our
or not
ancestors and
understand it,
divine
so I'll keep
heritage.
it brief. My goal
And
is
they are
simply to make
winning.
this public.
So
as
say
there was a
I put
time
my
when one would
brain
be killed
in a
for
robot body,
most
and there's a
were already
war.
familiar
Robots versus
or sworn
humans.
by oath
What
to
side am
remain
I
silent.
on?
Humans?
That
You
said,
have a human
in an
brain.
occult and
This
esoteric
reminds me of an
context,
account, and
the
it's
symbolic
probably
act of being
apocryphal.
baptized by water,
Administrators
being
came to
immersed in a
Churchill during the
river,
war and
lake,
said it was necessary
tub,
to cut the
or
budget
the
on
religious
museums
act
and
of
the arts.
sprinkling water onto a person's
Churchill
forehead,
responded,
symbolizing
then what are we
purification,
fighting for?
regeneration, or initiation
The point
into a
is that when
church,
humans are
actually
cut off from what is
alludes to the
beautiful and
alchemical
meaningful and
context of water,
inspirational,
which is
the
sex
fire
energy,
of the gods,
ents
when we
semens,
can't come together
term
to
used
create
by
protective
Paracelsus,
egregores,
a Swiss
then we're
physician,
doomed.
I think they're looking for something worth dying for because it's easier than finding something worth living for.
So trick something, go to nature or sneak into a museum or make contact with those that need help.
which
Be
constitute
Prometheus
water,
and defy Olympus.
fire,
Find that fire that is yours
These
by
three work
birthright.
together in what
Be
alchemists
the
call
revolution.
great work.
Create
So,
new personal
Mercury,
egregores or
represented by
find the old
Hermes,
ones.
or in this case, Seth,
Don't let them turn you
is
into
regarded
machines.
as the messenger
And
of
they'll
Christ,
say to you,
and as sex
what did
energy
you dream?
must be
It's all right,
transferred
we
into
told you
sulfur
what to dream.
or spirit
Welcome, my
through the
son,
medium of
to
earth
the machine.
or salt.
Oh, you shouldn't even exist. I mean, we took out Cyberdyne over 10 years ago. But we stopped Judgment Day.
Alchemical transformation
postponed Judgment Day is inevitable.
Let us to our interview with
seven
Jason
letters.
Red.
each of which represents one of the 7 classic planetary gods, meaning the 5 visible planets, plus the sun and the moon. And these 7 symbolically also represent the 7 chakras, or spiritual energy centers within the human body.
Go. Walk here. Drive there. All action basically for survival. All communication simple.
To full divinities and full humans at once, as we were meant to be. Our astral guess in this eternal now, then, and you will know the all.
None of this is real. It's all just trials to test your heroic attributes.
Your life is yours to create.
Let's not be ants. Let's reach our potential. Let's be the best version of ourselves. Let's know the all because the all wants to know us.
At the end of that match was a gift from the Titan Prometheus. A gift that he stole from the gods, who were terrified of what we might do with it were it to fall into our hairy little paws.
Our astral get
Pathways and corridors 100 miles long, 1,000 miles wide, full of twists and dead ends. Picture it. A puzzle you walk, and at the end of this maze is a prize just waiting to be discovered. All you have to do is find your way through. Can you see the maze? Its walls and floors, its twists and turns. Good. Because the maze you've created in your mind is itself the maze. There is no desert, no rock or sand. There is only the idea of it. But it's an idea that will come to dominate your every waking and sleeping moment. You are inside the maze now. You cannot escape. Welcome to madness.
That you are asleep.
We're getting out of this maze. We're losing our mind and coming to our senses. But it's hard, even as we continue to run with those searching for the truth and avoiding those who have found it.
As Philip K. Dick wrote, the maze shifts as you move through it because it is alive.
They built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result they no longer have, having been lobotomized, the capacity to leave the prison they made or to even see it as a prison.
The Minotaur in the maze wasn't just some game boss, but symbolized Theseus' own distorted ego, his every negative emotion and festering sin and ugly impulse. The Minotaur was a mirror, a glass darkling no more. In other words, each one of us has to confront our demons, the trauma of our past, both those who raped us and all our victims, and light the fuckers up in ecstasy. Embrace them until our hands bleed with the nails of our disassociation, and integrate them with love within our souls.
The book says we may be through the past, but the past ain't through us.
That's what the ancient Gnostics and other mystery religion practitioners did. That's when, remember, in the myth, youth and virgins are sacrificed to the Minotaur, which represent our innocence held hostage by our ego. Theseus leads the youths and virgins out of the labyrinth, which means that when we face horror, we don't lose our innocence, but our ignorance.
If it can be destroyed by the truth, it deserves to be destroyed by the truth.
And the golden thread Theseus used is from Princess Ariadne, but you can call her Sophia. Lady Wisdom planted it deep within your psyche aeons before you were born to help you out.
About how these are the instructions for a pharaoh who is meant to go to the underworld alive and return, and he's expected to come back and fulfill his duties, his everyday duties. And I thought, what a great subject. And it turns out that there was a secret initiation, the most secret of all initiations, and it spanned the world over. Even in North America, the native people were also practicing this ceremony as far as 1890 around the Great Lakes. And it really concerned the idea that you joined a kind of secret society, nothing nefarious about it. They were just protecting some very careful secrets and didn't want the information to fall into the wrong hands. And it was a very dangerous procedure whereby you were given kind of an induced near-death experience, and you went walk about in the underworld as easily and as realistically as you might go shopping for vegetables. And you came back with your eyes completely open about the mysteries of life, the true origin of the universe, and more importantly, about the nature of your soul. And one became queued up to have this very dangerous procedure. And essentially that was the nuts and bolts of what the book was about. It was about tracing how far back and how prevalent this initiation was. And it turns out it spanned the world, and I've traced it back to Japan in 8000 BC. And eventually, this practice moved west, and it became the foundation of the way that was practiced by the Essenes. And one particular interesting gentleman called Yeshua ben Yosef, otherwise known as Jesus Christ. So it does open up the story considerably.
Now that we're talking about texts,
yes, indeed, it's quite
about Jesus' time. And it turns out that when you look at the origin of the name of these 17 practices, they're called the Tayyid. It literally translates as the way. So there were 17 ways or practices that you had to learn before you were allowed anywhere near a kind of sarcophagus or a sacred cave where you would have this induced out-of-body experience. So there's a lot of alluding to it. They don't give away the practice, as always. It was a very well-kept secret. And when you correspond that to what the Greeks had learned in their time and overlap what they knew, then it seems to be the oldest known time when these teachings were actually written down.
Very interesting. And yes, your book talks a lot about the Egyptians and how they saw the world. As you say, they believed in as above, so below. And isn't it important to really try to understand the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, because people assume that they were obsessed with death, but I think what they were obsessed with was eternity. Earth was simply a springboard into the great later life, and as you're right, this springboard to go into the Amnuab was to, quote, awaken the inner human being. So they really were understanding about becoming divine while on Earth.
They really did, and I was looking at the situation from the point of view of when this concept of the infatuation between the Egyptians and the dead came about, and it really came about as an opinion by archaeologists in the Victorian era, mostly from England, who just jumped to this conclusion because they kept seeing mummified bodies, and because we had also recently been practicing this concept of one meal, a midday meal and an evening meal. And I'm looking at this from 2 points of view. If I'm looking at this literally, I'm thinking, well, if the guy's dead and is going into the other world, which is what you expect, why are they feeding a corpse? It doesn't make any sense. Unless, of course, you start reading into it and you realize, well, wait a minute, he's not going to die physically, he's going to die metaphorically. And then what they're giving him is a poison. They're slowly loading up his body with a poison to the point where by the time he takes his evening meal, he's pretty much out of it. And then they put him in a sarcophagus, which was specially carved for the occasion, in a special room, and he would disappear. And 3 days later, he literally is risen from the dead. And the first thing that he sees when he's taken to the mount, and women did this as well, by the way, he goes on a sacred mount and he is shown Venus rising before the equinox sunrise, which is always, wherever you go around the world, that's the mark of the risen initiate. And the Greeks followed on from this tradition because they learned their traditions from the Egyptians, and they called it the living resurrection. That's actually noted down. So it's such an awakening, and that's when it made a lot of sense about the hieroglyphs telling us that, yes, the pharaoh is supposed to go through this crazy process of going into the other world, but then he's expected to come back into his body and carry on until he has a physical death.
The declaration of war.
So the Prometheus Manifesto, which is available at prometheusm.com, is a distillation from out of my most recent book, which will be released by the time that this program airs. And the Prometheus Manifesto basically returns to the philosophical trajectory of Prometheus and Atlas, but with more of an emphasis on technological developments of the kind that I treated in World State of Emergency. So in a way, it's a hybrid of the project of Prometheus and Atlas and World State of Emergency. And it begins by looking at some of the attributes of Prometheus and what makes the myth of Prometheus unique, and then goes into an examination of what people in the tech community call the technological singularity, in terms of 3 different facets, or 3 major aspects: the end of humanity, the end of history, and the end of reality. And after going through exploring these different dimensions of the technological singularity, it lays out a new vision for what I referred to as the spectral revolution in Prometheus and Atlas, and proposes that in order to navigate this unprecedented crisis that is the technological singularity, in order to come out the other side of this alchemical crucible stronger and empowered, rather than winding up in some kind of a inhuman condition, and seeing our humanity degraded by these potentially threatening technological developments, society, in accordance with the Promethean archetype, that we really need to develop a what I call a Prometheus society that's capable of integrating these radical technological developments in a positive way.
As a place to keep Adam and Eve trapped.
There have been developments within the military-industrial intelligence complex over the course of decades that have effectively led to a relatively autonomous economic and industrial base, and a radically divergent culture from the known cultures of Earth, a sort of culture of the Black Project world, and that the people in this breakaway civilization
and then Sophia
may very well decide
appears
to
in the form of an eagle. on the Tree of
slow,
Life,
stop, and then
teaches them all
reverse
about what's going on.
the convergent
And,
technological
at
advancements
this
that are
point,
leading us to the
the
singularity, as I suggested at
demiurge
the outset of our
decides
conversation.
to
The
essentially
import of
rape
thousands
Eve
of Nazi
because he
German
wants to
scientists into
trap
the United
her
States
power,
after 1945, between 45 and
through
47.
the act of
And
sexual
also,
intercourse.
what's less
And
known,
this, according to
the
the Gnostics, is the
constitution of
origin
the
of
national
sexual
security
intercourse.
state in America
But
around 1947
Sophia escapes
involved
through the help of
an
intercession
integration
from above,
of
and Cain and Abel are born
very high-level
as the children of
scientific
Eve and the
and
demiurge.
technocratic
They're also
elements
known as
of the Third Reich. And these
Elohim
people
and Yahweh, I think, are
have
there are
effectively
two
been
other
working
names,
from within.
so I didn't write that down. And so those are kind of tongue-in-cheek references to
for a very long time,
other names
throughout
for
the second half
God
of the
in the
20th
Old
century,
Testament and the Hebrew Bible.
they
But then
had a
Adam and
convenient
Eve
relationship
have
with the
together
American
Seth,
political establishment
and
insofar as they
the
were
rest is
able to
history.
use American state power to dismantle
And Seth was
their
the
principal enemy, the
and
Soviet
Seth
Union.
was in the
But
image
after the
of
collapse of the
heavenly
Soviet
Seth,
Union in
the existing Seth,
1991,
right?
this
He is
military-industrial
the
deep
actual
state turned
divine,
on
the actual earthly
our,
reflection of the divine.
and that, at this point,
Gerasimos.
we are seeing a kind of
And prior
radical transformation
to the
of America
interaction with
socio-politically that
the Sethian
may
view, you
lead
saw
to
Seth as the Redeemer.
Right.
neo-feudal
Before
fascist system of some
adopting
sort. So,
Christian language.
to make a long story short, I think
gloss
that Joseph Farrell
that
has
came a little bit
taken
later.
Dolan's concept of the breakaway civilization
and then even after the
developed
Christian
it in
gloss,
a much more sophisticated way
there was
that
a
leads to very
version of
disturbing
Sethianism
conclusions
where
about the fascist
Jesus was
character of
actually
this
a
breakaway
reincarnation of
civilization.
Seth.
And when I say fascist, it's important to draw an important distinction.
Yeah,
and that's
Well,
the
they
distinction
probably
between the
originated,
futuristic
as you said,
elements in
apocalyptic
fascism
twisters.
and the traditionalist
They sort of
elements.
transitioned
If you go back to
into,
cyclical conception of
a
history, and
Christianity,
that we're in the Kali Yuga, we're in the last and darkest of the world ages before the cycle completes and begins again with a new golden age. This kind of worldview would be really conducive to a dramatic deindustrialization of the planet on the part of these cynical military-industrial elites who might want to
but referred to as
who might want to stop us from reaching the technological
androgynous.
singularity.
She was also a trinity.
If for no other reason than to
In the Book
maintain a
of John,
monopoly over the
also
control
part
of these
of the Nag Hammadi
technologies
library,
and to avoid
the
the kind of
Barbello is
social
described as the
destabilization that
first
would threaten
power,
their
the glory,
control.
Barbello,
All that.
the
People
perfect
might
glory
start wondering,
in
where
the
do I
eon,
find these cats?
the glory of revelation.
Yeah, I
The
think
text
it's
describes her
important
as,
to
quote, this is the
remember that
first
it's not
thought,
just the
his
military-industrial
image. She became
complex,
the womb
it's the
of everything. For
military-industrial
it is she who is prior
intelligence
to them all, the
corporate
mother,
complex.
father, the first
And
man,
so we're talking about
Anthropos,
large
the Holy
corporations
Spirit, the
that
thrice
have a
male,
close
the
relationship
thrice
with
powerful,
the military
the thrice named,
and are
androgynous
running black
one,
projects.
and the eternal eon among the
It's
invisible
also
ones,
Google,
and the first to come
which is
forth.
frankly indistinguishable from the
Epiphanius
CIA.
of Salamis, the oracle of Palestine,
And it's
was
large,
the bishop of Salamis,
large elements of the financial
Cyprus,
system as
at the end of
well.
the 4th century.
If you look
He is
carefully into
considered
the
a
events of
saint
9/11,
and a church father by both the Orthodox
Deutsche
and
Bank
Roman Catholic
plays
churches.
a very disturbing role
His
in
most
all of
important
that.
work involved
And Deutsche
documenting
Bank
a very large
also
compilation
plays a
of the
very
heresies up to his own time,
nefarious
full of
role
quotations
in
that are often
determining
the
the
only
immigration
surviving
policies
fragments of
under Angela
suppressed
Merkel,
text.
which led to this
An
social
example comes
catastrophe
from the
in
Book of
Germany.
Noria,
And then
Noah's
we
legendary
can make
wife.
it clear why I
Quote,
think that
For Noah was
it's these
obedient to the
characteristics
archon,
that will
they say,
empower
but
us
Noria
to
revealed
resist
the powers on high
the
and
potential
Barbello, the
totalitarianism
scion
that's
of the
looming on the
powers,
horizon.
the
And Jason,
opposite of
just
the
real quick,
archon,
and my
as the other
apologies,
powers are.
did you
And she
decide to write
intimated
this
that
with
would have
everything
been
that happened
taken
in
from the mother on
2020 as
high
a
by
reaction,
the
or is this
archon
something
who
you'd
made
already
the world,
planned since
and others
before?
with him, gods,
I would say it's a
demons,
hybrid of the
and
two.
angels, must be
I had
gathered
been
from the power in
already
the bodies
engaged in a book
through the
project
male and female
which
emissions.
involved a lot of these
This is
ideas.
referring to tantric
But
rituals
it did
and the
crystallize
goal of
after the
attaining
beginning of the
primordial
coronavirus.
spiritual
It
unity
crystallized into
through
this
erotic bliss
form of
and the
Prometheism
consumption of
after
bodily
the
fluids.
onset of the
In
coronavirus, which
esoteric
the
interpretations
significance
of
of
the
which was
Garden of Eden
immediately
story,
apparent to me.
the serpent plays the
So
role of the
I took
trickster,
that as an
a
indication that
term
really
that
there
in
wasn't very much
mythology and
time left,
religion
and that
is a
if some
character in the
resistance is
story
going to be organized, it has to begin now. You
who
know,
obeys the
the
rules.
first of the, let's
Sometimes
say
associated with
we could
Lucifer,
divide it into,
which in Latin means
I don't
light
know,
bearer. The serpent tries to encourage them to touch
about
the
7
forbidden
different
fruit, but
characteristics,
not to
primary
eat.
characteristics, I think, of the
The
archetype
forbidden
of
fruit
Prometheus.
represents the orgasm.
Just briefly going
And
through
this
what those are, let me
interpretation
start
has not
with
been fully
Prometheus
explained
as the
in modern
creator.
Bibles,
You know,
and is
in
part
Greek
of the
mythology,
guarded
and we've
oral
discussed this
knowledge
before,
that was
it's
historically
Prometheus and
withheld
not
from the
Zeus,
masses,
who is the creator of
and
man.
goes by various
So,
names,
you know, Prometheus
such as
is the
Kabbalah.
genetic engineer of
It is by
humanity,
arousing
but,
the carnal energy,
you know,
but not
Prometheus
expelling
also
it, or
is often
spilling the cup
associated
of
rightly, I
Hermes,
think, with
but by
creative genius.
prolonged arousal.
So one of the
Energy
chief
can
attributes
then
of
be harnessed,
Prometheus is this
redirected,
idea of creative
and
genius,
transmuted
and
using various
that
techniques
he is our
that I
creator in
discussed
whose
earlier
image
in
we're
a prior
made, and so he also
presentation.
represents the creative
This
power
is
of
the way
humanity.
that prana,
Prometheus
chi,
isn't just a creator, he's
ki,
also an enlightener.
drill,
So
or
Prometheus
life
is
force
one of
energy
those
is used
figures
to activate
in,
the pineal gland,
you know,
which is said to give one
theology
access to the
that plays the role of a
subconscious or
civilizer god.
collective
You see this
unconscious
in
mind.
some other cultures
Another
in
way of
terms of, let's say,
saying
Quetzalcoatl
divine
among
enlightenment,
the
So
ancient
come to
Mexican
treat
nomenclature
pantheon,
humans
of
like
mysteries
humans,
or
not
therein.
machines,
Enki
and to be
Light.
in
clear
ancient
about what private
Mesopotamia.
My
information
name is
they are
Robert
requesting,
Sepper.
so that
Prometheus,
humans can seek out. I have learned that humans care a lot about privacy. It is related to their sense of autonomy. Because knowledge is power, and the more other humans know about you, the more power they might exert over you. So all disclosures of private information need to be voluntary. The problem is, humans often sign away their privacy without truly understanding what they're doing. They do this because they sign terms of service agreements that only a machine could read. Treat humans like humans, not machines, and to be clear about what private information they are requesting, so that humans can seek out alternatives and consider the trade-offs rationally. Otherwise, surveillance will spread like the virus you humans were intending to stop.